This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work with another Wolff Responds. This time I want to talk to you about the relationship between immigration and labor shortages, so-called, and the impact on the American economy of having closed our borders and having pressured many of our undocumented immigrants to leave the United States. And this involves me explaining what our political leaders, both Trump and Biden and all of them associated with either of them, have not told you and have not opened up about and may not even be thinking about. Let's just follow the bouncing ball of logic here. We have been closing our borders now for quite some years under Obama, Trump, and Biden. By means of ICE and other agencies, we are pressing undocumented immigrants to return to the countries, particularly in Central America, from which they came. All right, let's take a look at what the consequences of doing this are. Number one, the vast majority of these immigrants who came, undocumented, but this also includes documented ones as well, have done what every wave of immigrants in the United States has always done. They've come in and taken the jobs that are hardest and that pay the least, whether that's in a retail establishment, in a restaurant, a department store, a car wash, or any other similar employment. They have enabled those businesses to be profitable in large part because immigrants, fleeing often for their lives from desperate economic or political situations, they're often willing to work for relatively little, less than Native Americans think they are entitled to. Okay, it doesn't take a genius then to understand that as those people, are pushed out of the United States, as more of them cannot come in to the United States, employers who want and who depend for their profits on underpaying people discover that the people they underpay, immigrants, particularly undocumented ones, are in short supply. That's the labor shortage you keep hearing about, carefully sanitized so that its linkage to the immigration policies is not asserted, not made clear, denied, hidden, disguised, whatever word suits you. And now let's follow the ball as to what happens next. Employers tried to force workers back. That's what all those Republican governors did. They wanted to force Native American workers who had been getting the extra $300 a week from unemployment to help them through the pandemic. The Republicans took that back. Why? Because the employers who couldn't rip off the immigrants wanted now to force workers back by taking away a portion of their unemployment. That didn't work. It wasn't sufficient. So now employers had no choice anymore but to do what a labor shortage requires of them. They had to offer Native American workers higher wages. When they didn't, when they just pushed them back into the job, we developed the highest quit rate in American history. Workers quitting at an incredible rate because they were brought back to a job and suddenly confronted what we had done to the immigrant now being done to them, and they wanted no part of it. Surprise. So they quit. So now the employer has to raise the wages to get them back, raising them and hoping some come back. But you know, an employer who has to pay his workers more will do one of two things. Try to get by with fewer workers, making each of those that come back work even harder, but then they quit. So that doesn't work. Well, what do you do next? You pay them more, but now you have to pay more in wages. What is it you try to do? Recoup what you pay extra in wages by charging more for whatever it is you produce. And so, ta-da, we have an inflation, a general rise in prices. Now, there are multiple reasons for that. It's not only the immigration story, but the immigration story is a key part, excuse me, of this story. And it's a wonderful lesson that in a capitalist economic system, all the parts are linked together. And you intrude on one of them, it's going to ramify, it's going to explode on you in many ways that the glib politician who wants a few more votes by pandering to hostility to immigrants never thinks through, never cares about, and then causes one grief after another, because the inflation is going to have consequences too. The inflation to which the immigration stoppage contributes. As prices go higher, guess what in this country? Foreigners buy fewer goods because they're priced out. They go to where the prices haven't gone up. That's going to hurt export industries in this country and jobs in those industries. Here's another reality. As prices go up, the very wage increase the Native American got to bring him back to work is undone by the rising prices. It doesn't give you an increase in your real purchasing power at all. It's a mess. That's the economy we're in. It's a mess. It doesn't compute. Things are being done helter-skelter. We're managing this economy pretty much like we managed the war in Afghanistan. We're losing, and it's going to cost all of us. Fighting against the poorest immigrants in the world by closing out their opportunity is another example of a system in trouble making its own decline worse. This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work.